to Attenuation, a weekly podcast where two friends come together to drink beer, discuss beer styles and trends, and just generally ruminate on the meaning of life, aka beer. If you enjoy your time with us, we invite you to become a weekly listener and subscribe to the podcast. Without further ado, here is this week's episode.
Hello, and welcome to episode 9 of Attenuation, a beer podcast. My name is Jason, and I'm joined by my best friend since 8th grade, Steven.
Hello.
So, today we are going to be covering beer misconceptions. And most of these are personal between Steven and I, just kind of ideas that we had as we got into craft beer that now, looking back, we weren't generally correct on. So should be some good stories and some good information, hopefully. But, of course, before we get into the topic, we have to do the best part of the podcast, and that's drink beer.
Time to drink some beers.
That's right. So do you want to introduce your beer first this time, Steven?
Yeah, sure. Okay, so I kind of picked one I have no idea about, which is kind of cool. Podcast exclusive. So this is called Fluctuation, and it's a double IPA from Equilibrium Brewing, and it's from Middletown, New York, which I think is just like a little bit north of New York City. And yeah, like I said, this is last week I talked about keeping the beer cold and how like some of the cans say it, and this is the one that says like, if it's not cold, ask why. So it says, help us ensure the cold chain. So this should be kept cold at all times.
And it was not.
Well, it traveled a little ways, but did I say? I don't know if I said, but this is 8.1%. This was canned on 2/24, so it's getting a little old too. Unfortunately, I have like a lot of double IPAs in my fridge, and it's hard to get through them all.
Yeah, you got to stay on top of it.
Yeah. Hard to drink every night, you know.
Well, especially if they're 9%.
I mean, I like beer, but sometimes I have to work the next day. Oh my gosh. Okay, so I'm pouring this out in my tulip glass.
Good.
My 16-ounce tulip glass. So this thing is massive, and I love this color. I love the pale color. I talked about this all the time. I love this pale straw color in my hazies. It's the best because I know, you know what that means? It means that nothing's getting in the way of my hops. Okay. All right. So my nose notes first. Whoa, very strong, sort of like mandarin orange, tangerine-ish.
Ooh, yeah, I like the sound of that.
Tangerine for sure. Kind of that like, what's that? You know that old school canned fruit cocktail?
Yes.
Did you ever eat that as a kid?
Oh yeah. It's like with
like the weird skin
light syrup
with like the weird skin grapes in it.
Yeah. Oh, you're talking about the full-on cocktail.
Yeah. Or the little like the little cherries, but they're like, I don't know, they're gross
no,
because they've been
cherries are
syrup.
So you knew you had the good fruit cocktail if you have the one with the cherries in it, because they don't all have cherries in there.
That's like exactly what this smells like though. A really cool head. Probably, I think, like I said, I don't know anything about this beer and they don't put any information on the can, but probably brewed with some oats because it looks like it's got a nice, like, really heavy head that sticks around for a while. So oats or some wheat or something. But yeah, okay, I'm gonna dive into this. I'll let Jason do his beer.
Cool. No, that one I wish I could try that one because I like the sound of that mandarin. So I don't know 100% how to say this. I think it's LupuJuice, and it's number 5. And this is from a very cleverly named brewery. It's Imagination Brewing Company. So Imagine space Nation, which just sounds like imagination. And they are in, looks like, Montana. So this is a New England IPA. It's 5.5%. And what they say about this one is every barrel is brewed with 4 pounds of Strata, Amarillo, Citra, and Citra Cryo. So there's a lot of additions of hops to this one. So I'm pretty excited about this one. I've never had it, but mine's also supposed to be flavors and aromas of mandarin orange, bright lemon, and mango. So we are going to pop this one open. So I think Steven would be excited about the color of this one as well. It's also, mine's a little darker, but it is that straw kind of color. Definitely some hazy, and it's developing a nice thick head there. And right away, Oh, just even from the can opening, I'm getting a ton of mango, and it's super dank, like a lot of pine, and then a lot of just that dank, like marijuana smell. Not
Yeah, I
really
was gonna say you
getting,
should probably get some mango on that sucker.
yeah, mango, and maybe a little like lemon for sure. But yeah, primarily like this kind of smells very piney. So it's almost making me think of like a West Coast IPA. So I'm excited to see how this tastes. So I'm going to dive into this one. How's that one tasting over there, Stephen? You're making some weird faces.
Yeah, it's kind of funky. It might be because it's a little bit older.
I think it's because it was not cold the whole time.
Definitely. That's definitely the reason. I don't know. It has this like really weird finish to it. It's like a weird berry finish almost. Like you would get if you were like if you ate like a not ripe blueberry, you know? Like I don't know. It's really weird. I wish I could describe it better than that, but I can't. So it's kind of like bitter. It's like a bitter berry finish.
I don't know if I like the sound of that.
No, it's weird. I'm drinking more. It's not getting better.
Uh-oh, that's not a good sign.
I'm not getting anything good out of this. I'm really sorry, people.
Your tasting notes are thumb down. Will
Big
not buy
thumbs
again.
down.
Yeah.
This is bad.
That's disappointing. That does happen though sometimes.
Hey, bad beer exists, man. Look, like I said, they spend weeks and weeks making these beers, huge, batches of beers. They don't want to just throw them out. Okay,
Yeah,
they're gonna can it and send it out and hope somebody likes it.
No, that makes sense. All right, well, I'll give you my notes. So this beer is weird because it smells like a West Coast IPA to me, kind of like a lot of pine. Like it smells like it's going to be really bitter, but then it's not really bitter at all. But it still sort of has that pine flavor. So on the nose, there's a ton of mandarin, but then on the taste, you do get a little bit of orange and a little bit of like lemon rind on the entrance. But then the development is all kind of just that pine, like that pine you would get. I'm trying to think like if you drink just like a Lagunitas IPA or something like that, but it lacks a lot of the bitterness that I normally associate with that flavor. So it's kind of throwing me for a loop a little bit. I don't know if I like it or not. Let me drink a little bit more of this. But maybe we got two duds today.
I know if I like mine or not.
You do not?
I'm sure of it.
Oh my gosh. So the jury's still out on mine, but it sounds like you don't like yours.
No, it's really bad. I don't usually say that about beers. I almost like wish I tasted more alcohol, honestly. Then at least I
and it's 9%, right?
It was 8.1.
8.1.
It's definitely getting up there. I don't know. I at least maybe would enjoy it more if I knew I was getting drunk too.
So I think I can actually add a misconception to the end of our list, but I'll save it for the finale.
All right.
So now that we're so happy about our beers, we can jump into our misconceptions. I'm just laughing because of the face you're making. Okay.
Well, I have this one beer in front of me. I have to just keep drinking it because it's the one beer in front of me. It's just not good.
They're stuck in a rock and a hard place.
So luckily the listeners cannot see my face because maybe my face will come through in my voice.
He looks really sad.
I haven't had a beer this bad in a while, actually.
Dang.
Dude, this is good. I shouldn't do any more podcast exclusives though, where I know nothing about the beer or the brewery.
Definitely makes it harder to gauge, and also harder to give like tasting notes and thoughts on it if it's the first time you're trying it.
Yeah, I mean, I've definitely had some huge duds from the Tavor because they're trying to sell their beer, so they always make it sound amazing, and it's so easy to like fall into that trap of like, oh, they make it sound amazing, it must be amazing, and they're not.
I will say they do make their descriptions. They do sound like they're the greatest. Every beer they describe on there sounds like it's the greatest beer to ever occur on the planet. Yeah,
it took me a little while to finally figure out, like, hey, I think they might be exaggerating.
So that's funny. That's like a primary difference between the two of us. I'm like so cynical and so skeptical. The second I started reading those, I'm like, okay, give me a break, you guys. But yeah, you're right. They're trying to sell it, and they do actually do a pretty decent job of describing stuff, but I would just take everything they say with a grain of salt. But okay, we can jump into the first misconception. So I'm going to let you tackle this one because
we're going to do news first.
Oh, I forgot. Oh man, got to stick to the formula.
How many episodes are we in? You don't know
Episode 9.
You don't know the format yet?
I don't know. It's because I'm looking at my notes and I didn't write news on the notes, so it's going straight into our main topic. Okay, I'm gonna write it in right now. News. Okay, what's our news?
Okay, well, this is more local to me, but the Texas Craft Brewers Festival, held in Austin in October, is going as planned. So it is officially on, which is very exciting because we know so many beer festivals have been canceled. A lot of them, even this year, still are canceled and won't go until next year. So the fact that we're going to get a nice big beer festival this year in October is pretty exciting. So if you are in this area at that time, I will see you there for sure.
Nice. Maybe I'll have to come for that.
Yep.
That would be ideal.
So that's going to be cool. And
All right.
then another we're going to head to Seattle in a couple days.
Oh, I'm so excited. We were just scoping out the tap lists for the breweries we're going to visit, and I'm praying to the beer gods that none of these things kick in the next 3 days, because there's a lot of stuff I want to try.
Right, these tap lists don't change in the next few days.
Nothing.
We have our hearts set on all of them. So
yeah. Well, we have enough things we want to try though. They're not. Not everything is gonna run out.
So that's exciting. I'm excited to see your face in real life.
I know. We haven't seen each other for a long time, so it's gonna be cool to hang out, and then we'll be taking lots of pictures. We'll probably try to do the Instagram thing and give you guys some pictures, some stories. Maybe I don't even know how to do a story, but we'll figure it out. Two old guys on.
Yeah, we're trying to figure who's the social media manager.
It's not in the budget. But yeah, man. So we'll be reporting. Probably next episode we'll report back on our experiences.
Yep, it's gonna be awesome.
Okay, now we did news, so now we can do the main topic. See, I'm back on schedule.
Don't worry, I'll edit it and make it sound like never missed a thing.
You gotta leave it in. That's people like the real experience.
Yeah, the humanity.
There's a lot of humanity on this podcast. Okay, so number one, hoppy beer is going to be bitter.
Whoa, man.
Yeah.
Well, first off, it was not a misconception, because when I first tried my first hoppy beer, I was like, that's the most bitter thing I've ever tasted. So technically it was true, but as I learned more about different styles of hoppy beers, I started to realize that it doesn't all have to be bitter. Even, one of the first hoppy beers that I enjoyed was a hoppy sour. And so that was like the most unbitter hoppy beer I'd ever tasted, because hops were a sort of secondary thing that like bolstered the flavors of the beer. But the highlight was the sourness and that kind of side of it. So I started to realize like, oh, that's a flavor I might actually start to enjoy. And then of course, being able to drink some really good New England style hazy IPAs, where the whole point of that style is really to showcase hops with a lot less bitterness. Then I started to realize that hoppy beers weren't always bitter, and hoppy beers didn't necessarily have to challenge your palate to a point of unenjoyment. They could delight you. They could actually make you happy to drink, and they could go down easy, which was definitely a misconception for me at first, that there would ever be a hoppy style that I would enjoy. And now, of course, I'm to the point where the hoppier the beer, sometimes the better, even with the bitter.
Yeah, so that's going to go into one of our other misconceptions later in the episode. But yeah, I think you're right. And then the other thing for me is, like, when I first got into craft beer, I can kind of broaden this topic to say craft beer is going to be bitter. That's kind of a misconception I had, because the thing about, at least when I got into it, it's still kind of true, is like IPAs are so popular. So I remember when I would go to like the craft section of the grocery store, and this is when they were like all bombers. If they had like a 20 feet of shelf space, like 15 feet of it was IPAs. So like,
yeah,
you just like, if you randomly didn't know what you're doing and you go pick one, like you're probably going to end up picking up an IPA. And until you kind of identify like what you're going for, you're just like, oh, all these are going to be bitter, because you're just statistically grabbing an IPA, and then you start to figure out like, oh, well, they're not all like this. But
yeah, it's crazy you say that too, because I was just at the grocery store the other day looking at the beer fridge, and I mean, that's not even close to the case anymore. I mean, It was just a lot of sours, a lot of hazy IPAs now. Almost everyone's brewing and canning one of those now. And I mean, I don't know, finding a West Coast IPA in the craft beer section, getting much harder to find.
I think they're out of style, which is crazy. Because I mean, I could be wrong, but I just thinking back, like how popular they were. Now it kind of feels like what you said, they're hard to find, which is weird. But I think it's never been a better time to be into craft beer now because you do have a lot of choice and a lot of selection, and it's cool to see so many sours and hazies for sure.
And I think we've talked about too that session IPAs are getting more popular, lower ABV IPAs, and that's, I mean, I saw that at the grocery store too, and that's also kind of they're hoppy beers, but I think the fact that they're a little less strong in terms of alcohol, they can also be a more approachable style. So, because a lot of those will fall into the like 30 to 50 IBU range, and they're not overwhelmingly powerful alcohol-wise, and they're much easier to drink.
Yeah, then that makes a lot of sense. Okay, I'm going to tackle the next misconception because I have a lot of opinions about this one. So, more expensive beer is better. That's what I initially thought.
True.
I think a lot of people still think this. No, it's not true. So
true.
There is something called diminishing returns. So it's been a long time since I took economics, but like as the price rises, quality usually does rise to a certain point. But then what happens is like you hit a thing I like to call the price point where you're paying for, it's kind of like there's a balance and an equality between what you're paying and the quality you're getting. But once you pass that price point, every dollar you're spending is getting you much less returns, if that makes sense. So your marginal value of each dollar spent as you pass the price point it starts to go way down. So this is actually an easy analogy to make about like cars and stuff like that, but I'll try to keep it in the beer universe. And the example I'm going to give is a beer that I think hits the price point is, for me especially because I'm a big stout fan, is Deschutes the Abyss. So they make that, I think they make it once a year, but it's about $12 to $15 comes in like the bottle, and it's so fancy because they dip the top in wax. And this beer is amazing. If you can get your hands on this beer, it's definitely worth the price of admission. But then, of course, they do like their special releases. So they have the ones that, we talked about this in a previous episode, but they have like the tequila barrel ones and the bourbon barrel ones. And just based on like the prices I'm seeing online, because I don't super remember, I just know they were a lot more. But it looks like the regular Abyss is about 15, and one of these special Abysses is 25. And I could be wrong, but because I'm, just looking online, but I do remember like the last time I was in the fancy beer store in our local town, side by side, the special ones were definitely more expensive, and I kind of got suckered into buying a couple of those because I always chase novelty. So I'm the kind of person that like if I go to the store and they have like a new flavor of Pepsi, I'll always buy it. I just bought a 12-pack of mango Pepsi. It's the most disgusting thing I've ever tasted, but like I can't walk down the soda aisle.
Why did you do that?
I guarantee they have like learning algorithms that have figured out. No, they do, because like if you look, okay, we're gonna go on a tangent right now. But have you ever looked at like the flavors of Oreos they have now? There's like birthday.
Oh yeah,
cake.
yeah. Yep.
And I guarantee they have figured out like, hey, enough percentage of the human population will buy something novel that we're just going to like continuously make new flavors, and people just continuously buy them forever, and we'll just get those like sure sales. But we're going to discontinue all of them because they're all disgusting. Anyways, that's
the Abyss. That with potato chips now too, by the way.
Yes, exactly. And that's what the Abyss did with their bottled beer. They like, let's throw it into all these different bottles. It's really cool. It's really different, but it's not worth it. Like, not only did I don't think I liked the special ones. I thought they were actually worse than the regular Abyss, and they're like $10 more, so they're like way more expensive. So I just think there is a price point that you're going to want to hit. So in like early on, because I remember this happened too I took a buddy of mine to the grocery store, or that really fancy grocery store we have, and they had a bunch of good beers, and he was kind of like, oh, I want to get something like really special for this weekend, and he's like automatically like targeting the most expensive stuff. And I had 2 points of advice for him. I was like, one, I think a lot of those things are really past the price point, so you're not getting, I just don't think the value's there. And two, you haven't been drinking craft beer that long. Like Even if the value's there, I think it's going to be lost on you. Like, I don't, no offense to your palate, but I don't think you're fully going to appreciate like what you're drinking if you jump straight into, this $26 bomber or whatever. So don't be afraid to think that expensive beer just don't get suckered in by it, I would say.
I'll give you a perfect example. So early on in drinking craft beer, once I got onto the Tabor and I started to mostly get like kind of my like really good craft beer from them, because I wasn't really, at the time you couldn't really find good stuff in the store or stuff from other parts of the country, that kind of thing. So I was just kind of watching Tabor to see what they would put on there, and they had this Anchorage Brewing darker than whatever stout. It's just like crazy amazing imperial stout. and honestly, I've been aging them for a few years. I bought a couple bottles, and really I bought it just because it was like, oh, that's expensive and it looks really nice. Like, I don't even like stouts. This is not a beer I probably would even enjoy, but I got it because I thought, like, if you're cool and you drink craft beer, like you drink this stuff. So, and again, my palate is probably not sophisticated enough to enjoy it, which is just makes it stupid to pay that kind of money for that beer. So I've made the mistake many of times of falling into that trap of thinking like I have to pay more for a beer because it's cool or it's hyped or something like that.
Yeah, no, totally. And we're another small tangent. I'm also into Scotch. And this is something I've learned from drinking Scotch. I remember where I was at Total Wine. I was looking at the Scotch section, and this guy came in. And he's like, "Oh," because like me and Steven are probably the same. Like when I go to the beer section at Total Wine, I can never like go with my wife because I'm gonna stand there for like 45 minutes and like look up like 30 things on my phone, and she'll get so mad at me. She'll be like, "What are you doing? Let's go." So I do the same thing when I'm looking at Scotch. So I think this guy just saw me like nerding out with the Scotch, and he was like, "Oh, you look like." You look like you know what you're talking about. So like, let me tell you a situation. Like I'm celebrating a big promotion or whatever. Like I want to just go wild. I want to get a really big bottle of Scotch. I just want to drink it. Which one would you get? And they said, well, this is what I would do. And this is true of Scotch and beer, I would say. I'm going to recommend you this one that's quite nice. And what you're going to do is you're going to go home and you're going to drink 3 fingers of that. So about, in a glass, 3 fingers is, a couple inches of that good Scotch. Then you're going to put the cork back in that good Scotch and you're going to put it back on the shelf because you're going to be pretty tipsy by that point. And then you're going to drink this other Scotch because it's way more affordable. And if you're really planning to like go all out tonight or this weekend, like don't drink a bunch of the good bottle because like
right.
Yeah, like once you're like if you're going all hard and you're going to be pretty drunk, like you're almost just wasting all this good Scotch. And I think that's actually true of beer too. Like if I'm going to go hard, which I don't because I'm old now, but like I want to start on a really good beer and then maybe my second and third beer won't be as nice because at that point I'm not really appreciating what I'm tasting, and I feel like there's a lot of data loss like at that point.
Well, even the last time, the most recent like happy hour with my coworkers at the brewery, I've got this new beer podcast. We're talking beer and like we're trying each other's things and we're just discussing styles and what we like and what we don't, but like a few hours into the night, like we're drinking beers and we're like, this is good. And we're like, but I don't know if it's good just because I'm wasted or like what, but everything tastes good now. So
Exactly.
Yeah, at some point you might as well just go to the cheaper stuff.
Exactly. Drink your most expensive beer first. All right, so the next misconception. So I'll lead in on this one, but you can pick up if you have something to say. But this one I 100% believed. Beer is better from a bottle than a can. So I've just always thought, until recently, like now I know the difference because of like light degradation and stuff like that. But for some reason I just thought like, oh, like I like how something tastes out of a glass. It's true of like soda too. I don't know. There's something about like can. I think this is kind of looked down on. Like, oh, is this an aluminum can? Like, I want it to come in a glass bottle, or like I want something fresh off the tap into a glass. Like a drinking glass. I don't want to drink something out of this like metal can. But now I know like I was kind of totally wrong on that point. And the can actually 100% protects the beer from light degradation. So, and I think it's kind of reflected now if you see in the grocery store or whatever, like everything comes in a can now almost, which is crazy. So yeah, totally wrong about that one.
I think it plays into the like more expensive is better because it like the more expensive beers would tend to come in bottles, and maybe that was just just the fact that some of these were stouts and they thought that they would be better in bottle or they would age better in bottles or something. I don't know. But yeah, I can see how seeing a more expensive bottle or like the bigger bombers and thinking that must be better than these cans, or that's what the macro lagers come in as cans, so must be the worst way to
you know what, I wonder if that is a carryover association, because all the good beer, good quote unquote craft beer, good beer came in bottles, and the really nice stuff they dip it in wax, which looks really cool. Yeah. And then like Budweiser just comes in a can. So I wonder if that kind of is a carryover association.
I do have to say though, if I'm drinking a beer from the package, I would prefer to drink from a bottle.
Right?
Do you find that true? Yeah. Well, I have a hard time drinking beer from a can. I feel like it doesn't open up, or it doesn't, like, I don't know. I feel like I get kind of a metallic taste, and maybe that's all in my head, but
well, I don't drink, to just self-proclaim how much of a beer snob I am. I don't drink anything out of a bottle or can. It goes into a glass. Like I had I had like a Boot Amber Ale on this weekend, and I poured that into a glass. Like, I'm not drinking anything out of a bottle. I don't know.
Yeah, the only thing that I don't pour out is if I take something down to the pool. I put the can in my like little koozie thing.
Oh, nice.
Drink it out of the can, but that's almost always just like a Goza, or it's usually one of my like really light sours. And again, it's not as good. It's not even close to as good as when I pour it out, but it's at least kind of enjoyable. I can't drink an IPA that way. I can't do it.
It's horrible. And in fact, if you guys don't believe us, I want you to go get a decent IPA, and I want you to pour half of it into a glass and just do a side-by-side tasting with the same beer, where half of it is coming out of the bottle and half of it, or a can, and half of it is coming out of a tulip glass. And I pretty confidently can say you'll like it better out of the tulip glass.
I'd rather have it in like even just like a plastic Solo cup or something.
Oh, okay. Just so you can get your nose in there, and
yeah, I'd prefer that over a can for sure. I tried to drink Electric Jellyfish from Pint House Pizza, which is an amazing hazy IPA. It's one of the best beers here in the Austin area, and I tried to drink that out of a can because I was out somewhere, and that's how I got it. It wasn't good.
You gotta put them in. You gotta pour it out, man.
Granted, I'm used to drinking it on tap, so that might have been part of it.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
But even you've had that beer out of a can, right? So
it was amazing. Well, no, I didn't drink it out of the can.
Well, you didn't drink it out of a can, but I mean, you've had it like
that beer was really good.
Yeah. So. Yeah, I say the whole beer is better from a bottle than a can. Like, the beer that's in a bottle is going to be better than a beer that's in a can. I don't think that's true, but I think drinking from the bottle or from the can, or not pouring it out, that's definitely something I've learned is like, yes, pour the beer out. That's how you're really going to enjoy it. So.
No, that's a good, that's a good evolution of that. I didn't think that far ahead. All right. Number 4, macro beer is bad. Misconception.
True.
No, these are misconceptions.
Oh, dang it. You're screwing this episode up.
So, I think there's a lot of snobbery in craft beer.
No.
And I think part of the reason it's not approachable is because people are snobby, and that's not appealing. That's not a good look.
Yeah, I like to feel like I'm better than other people.
No, that's bad. So I'm gonna say it here, and I try to express this every episode. Drink what you like, and if you like it, then that's the right beer you should be drinking. Never drink a beer because it's the cool beer, the in beer. That's stupid. I don't think macro beer is bad. I think every beer has the right set and setting. You're I don't know, you're looking at me like I'm crazy.
No, I'm not.
Okay.
That's just my face, man.
Oh, I see. So yeah, I don't know, because I'll still drink almost any beer.
I mean, I think for me, what I've found is that like there's macro companies, and they're making other styles other than just the pilsners and lagers, and I think they're pretty good. Blue. We talked about a Blue Moon. That's really essentially a macro beer made by the macro beer companies, and it's good. It's a great wit beer. I would gladly drink that anytime. I would not gladly drink Coors Light or Bud Light. Like PBR, I would drink, but there's just and I like again. I wish I was less of a beer snob, and I wish that I didn't have this attitude. I think if you like those beers, like go ahead, drink them. I mean, I don't care what you do. But in the back of my mind, I'm always thinking there is better beer. There's a better Pilsner. There's a better lager. I guarantee there's a better beer that you would like. So maybe if I could just introduce you to some of those.
Okay, fair enough.
But I would never force my religion on anybody. And beer is my religion. So. Beer religion. That's awesome.
Okay, so number 5 we have is, and I think you wanted to cover this one. Sour beers and lighter styles are not real craft beer.
Yeah, I mean, I felt very overwhelmed at the beginning, trying to get into craft beer, and it was kind of at the time when the hoppy beers were very, very popular, and there was this hop race, and so I kind of felt like I was left out, like they're not making beer for me because I just don't like these beers, and I didn't really understand how anybody could. Same thing with the dark beers. I wasn't a coffee drinker, so it was hard for me to get into that style. And so it wasn't until I found sours that I realized, like, oh, there are beers that I like, craft beers that I like. I mean, I'm super lucky that it's evolved this way, but now, I mean, most breweries have some sort of sour on tap, if not multiple. And many times they're like, they're the number one sellers for these breweries. So, and some of them, especially like the wheat sour, like Gozes and Berliner Weisses and like sour blondes and stuff, they can tend to be lighter alcohol too, and so that was another thing. Like, oh, maybe they're not as good, or but when you start to realize, like, oh, that's just true to the style, that's how they're supposed to be, then like the ABV doesn't really matter, that's just part of the style. In fact, like, I've had a few, like, they call them Imperial Gozes, and they were like 8-9%. They were horrible. I mean, absolute trash. So if you're a brewery out there, I don't know why you'd be listening to this podcast, but if you are, don't make an Imperial Goza.
Yeah, that does not sound good.
It was gnarly. So anyway, like, sometimes, and so you can see how even breweries are falling into that trap of thinking, like, oh, maybe we need to make a high ABV Goza or something like that, and just don't. Like, it's not right. It doesn't fit the style. It doesn't fit the taste and flavor profile. That all has to be balanced. So anyway, the fact that sour beers and lighter styles, even like Hefeweizens and just wheat ale, like fruited wheat ales. I mean, Hell or High Watermelon from 21st Amendment. Like, I've heard like really snobby craft beer people trash on that beer. I'm like, dude, it's an amazing beer. Like, it's so good, and it's a great craft beer, and it's well executed. So, I don't know, some of these beers that maybe like even the craft beer world is like the craft beer snobbery can kind of push to the side. It's like, no, this is really good beer, and people should be able to enjoy these beers and feel like they're enjoying craft beer. So,
no, yeah, I love Hell or High Watermelon, by the way. Yeah, same thing. And that leads totally into my next misconception that I had. Definitely in the beginning, I totally thought this was true. Like, higher alcohol, like higher ABV and imperial beers are better. I don't know why I thought that. I don't know where that idea came from, but like I used to be like, oh, this one's like 9%. This one's so good. You know what I mean? But I don't know. I just thought like, oh, it's a strong one, or like it's an imperial one. So like this is craft beer. But now that I've been, drinking for a long time, I'm like, no, this doesn't necessarily mean it's better. It's kind of what you said. Like you got to match the ABV to the style. So obviously, like I like stouts, a lot of like barrel aged stouts, and yeah, those generally have higher ABV, and that's fine. Like because it fits the style. But I don't think higher ABV doesn't necessarily make a beer better. And I actually find that with a lot of new craft beer drinkers, they fall into that same trap. They kind of think like, oh, this is so good because it's like a double IPA or triple IPA or whatever. And it's not necessarily the beer is bad, but it doesn't. That in of itself, I don't think is a metric of quality that I would ever measure a beer by now. But for some reason, it was in my head that was like something you measure a beer by.
Well, I think like that was one of the hardest things for me to get into stouts. It was like, well, I don't know, like how do I drink a 15% stout like by myself trying to get try this beer, but like there are 8 and 9% milk stouts that like would be a great entryway into that style. So you don't have to drink the highest ABV version of a style just because just to try and get into that style.
Yeah, and honestly, they can go too high even on stouts. Like, yeah, if I see 15 plus, like, oh man, you got to be in a special mood to drink one of those. Or
yeah, very special.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, so that's something I've definitely transcended. Also, like the older I get, I feel like the less I can drink. Which is so depressing. But
so the key is to just have a really bad beer in your hand and you can't drink.
Dude, I see that you've like barely drank any.
So I'm gonna do a little mid-episode update. It's getting a little bit better as it warms up. I don't know. Maybe I'm just trying to make it taste better in my head. But the bitterness has gone away a little bit, and it's just very sweet. I still don't say I like it or like it anymore. It's just different. It's a different way to hate it because now I feel like it's just too sweet. So still would not drink this again.
Nice. Okay, well that's good to know. I'll give you an update on mine. So I'm drinking LupuJuice 5.
Yeah,
it's fine. I don't have anything bad to say about it, but I wouldn't go out of my way to get it again. It's not bad. It's not great.
I think what was more disappointing for mine is that it smelled really good.
Yes, and that's something that can happen. Where something smells unbelievable, and then you taste it, and it's so disappointing.
Like every saison I've ever had. Smells good, tastes bad.
I'm not gonna argue with you on that one. So I'm going to interject. So I had a misconception for you. And
okay.
This might be very controversial. This is a hot take.
Oh.
You have to be old to believe this. Also, people are going to listen to this and be like, you guys are old. But I don't know. I'm feeling pretty old today. And it's my tolerance to alcohol is making me feel old. But you can pour a beer out.
Yeah.
That was a huge misconception of like, I probably didn't do that for the first time until like only a couple years ago. I always thought like, it's such a waste. You have to drink it. But you know what? You don't.
No, you don't. Nobody's going to die if you don't.
Yeah, if you hate a beer, there's not a big difference on the universal scale of if it goes down the drain or if it goes into your stomach. Like, don't drink a beer because you don't like it.
Look, the brewery has your money at that point.
Yeah,
it doesn't matter whether you drink it or not.
So I'm giving you permission to pour that one out.
Well, thank you. I will.
You're like, I didn't need your permission.
Yeah, but thank you.
So that's a bonus misconception for you.
I actually do that a lot.
Yeah.
And I say a lot, not that often, but I try a lot of stuff and I try a lot of different styles in the name of just trying to learn new things and try new things. And a lot of them I just don't like, and that's just going to happen. So I try to drink enough to really get a true sense of the beer, let it warm up, that kind of thing. And if I don't like it, I just go get something else. I go get something in my fridge that I know I'll like, and I'll drink that.
Yeah, you follow up a mystery one with a known fact.
Yeah, okay. I have another Equilibrium beer in my fridge. It's another, I think, double IPA. So I'll give them another chance.
Yeah, you never know. Maybe you just don't like this one.
Yeah, very possible.
rooting for you, Equilibrium.
Yeah.
Okay, number 7. This one also, I don't think I believed it until only a few years ago. Aroma, appearance, head, and the glass the beer is poured into don't matter.
Yeah. This kind of stems from like something my wife said about, like, I was talking about the head of the beer on the podcast or something, and she was like, oh, like, I always just thought that was a sign of a bad pour, like a big, big foamy head or something at the top. And I was like, no, that's where all the smell is.
When I was reading the Beer Bible, I think you're also reading that book. And 2 things I realized. I wish we could start over and go back in time and I could read that whole book before we started the podcast, because I'm like, oh, I sound like an idiot.
Yeah, we both do. It's okay.
That guy's
That's the point.
The writing's really technical, and then that kind of started to solidify my view on this, because he's saying like, oh, when you look at the color, you can, reverse engineer kind of like with a grain bill. And when you look at the head, you can reverse engineer like if they added, oats or something like that. And it's like, there's all this data in the appearance in the head that I was kind of just like not parsing. I was just kind of passing right over it. But now I'm like, oh, those were I kind of was ignoring all these cool data points that, I could have been absorbing and helping me, experience the beer like on a more technical level, but I just didn't really care. Because it's funny because I have my I had that moleskin journal I told you about. I'm gonna bring it so you can see it. We can laugh at we can laugh at my former self. But I would mimic what I was doing as I would mimic the reviews I saw on Beer Advocate. So I'd always do an appearance section, but like it's clear if you read my journal, I didn't really care. I would just write like color, like one word for color, one word for head. Yeah. And then I would take pretty good notes for like nose and flavor. But like, yeah, I don't know. I was like, whatever. It looks like beer.
Yeah.
Or if it was a cool color, I'd be like, oh, it's a cool red. Like, But now I'm going to be like, oh, maybe I should pay more attention to those things.
And like, definitely had to learn sort of to put my beer in the proper glass. And I say proper, like, I don't have like a library of 20 different glasses, but like you really should have, like a tall pint glass, a tulip glass for sure, and then I don't know what else do you have?
A tulip glass is the main one. I'm trying to think of what else I have. I have like a goblet that I like to drink like saison and stouts out of. I do have like a tall, I don't know what you would call it, but it's like a tall tulip glass almost. So.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know what the proper name for that one is, but usually it's whatever strikes my fancy. But yeah, I mean, just a tulip glass is almost good enough for anything, because it's gonna help capture the nose for you, like the aromatics coming off the beer. It's kind of gonna concentrate them, and then you can actually get your nose into it, so you're just really breathing it in. And that's probably. We could probably definitely be more technical about that, but I think I think it's tulip glasses. If you have tulip glass, it's like almost good for almost anything.
Yeah, it's gonna help a lot for IPAs for sure, and stouts
for sure. So yeah, something I can pay more attention to going forward.
I drink a lot of my like lighter gozes out of just a shorter. It actually looks like a beer can. The glass, it's kind of shaped like a beer can.
I have a lot of those.
Yeah, I drink a lot of my lighter beers out of that.
Actually, that's true. I drink a lot of. I actually have I have a mini tulip glass. I have 4 of them, and I have a mini tasting glass that kind of looks like it's like a pint glass, but it does have a little bit of a like it slants in at the top. And I have been doing that recently, ever since we did the episode where we tried the Kolsch.
Mm-hmm.
Because I find if you just pour a little bit in and then drink it, it almost, because if it's in the can, it almost seems like it keeps it cold a little bit longer. Because instead of pouring it all into the glass, I don't know if that's actually true, but it did seem like getting it in those little smaller sips. I kind of enjoyed that, so I've actually kind of been doing that lately too.
Cool.
Okay, so the last one, and this one's true of both of us, but especially true for Steven, is I will never like X style of beer. So whatever it may be. Stout, IPA. So can you elaborate on that?
Well, yeah, I mean, like I said early on, I thought there was no way I'd ever like an IPA, any kind of IPA. I just thought this is not good. It was horrible. Like undrinkable, honestly. And I certainly never thought I would like stouts. And I think that was coming from sort of the coffee angle and the like higher ABV angle too, because I just was not used to drinking anything that was high ABV at all. So those just seemed overwhelming for me. And I mean, there's still styles I don't think I'll ever like. And that's
I don't
probably,
think that's true.
yeah, yeah,
I think if you so I still don't like a few styles. I don't like saison.
yeah.
But I do. I don't even know how to say it. That's
We
how much
like
I
to
don't
hate
like
on
it.
saison.
But I still feel like if I drank enough of them, it would eventually click. So I'm gonna
Uh,
challenge myself to do that.
what's funny is I don't really like Hefeweizens that
Oh,
much,
okay.
but I'm definitely like starting to come around a little bit on those estery flavors.
Yeah.
And that's another thing is like you start to understand why something tastes the way it does. And I don't know what that does or why that like unlocks an appreciation for it. And then you start to be like, oh, I actually am starting to enjoy that.
That's 100% true. I did more cooking than I've ever done in my whole life because of like COVID, basically. And I feel like I went from being a very picky eater to liking almost everything because I did so much cooking that I like handled so many like tomatoes and onions because my wife's not a picky eater at all. So I had to try to cook things that she would, that we both like. And just like smelling the tomatoes out of the can, cutting the onions, like all this exposure to the direct ingredients, I suddenly started to appreciate like what they added to the dish. And now I like almost everything. It's really weird. It's been interesting. So I think you're totally right. Like when you understand the style and how it's supposed to taste and why it's supposed to taste that way or smell that way, you start to appreciate like, oh, okay, I see what they're doing here. Yeah, I gotta unlock those last few styles. And then barley wine. I don't know how you feel about that.
Oh, yeah. I don't,
That's a hard one.
I've maybe tried like 2 barley wines in my life.
Yeah,
And
that's
honestly, I don't even think I could speak to it, like speak to what the style tasted like or what I thought of it when I tried it. I mean, I'm pretty sure I didn't love it.
no. I think that's a hard nut to
Because
crack.
if I did,
One,
I would have
yeah,
started
for
seeking
sure.
them out.
Because
But
they're kind of rare. I mean, Sierra Nevada makes one called Bigfoot. They've made it like every year for like forever.
yeah,
Um, and then the other one that I'm gonna forget what it's called, but there's another one that I really like. It'll come to me in a second, but yeah, they're kind of rare, but they are not approachable. That's how I
yeah. Well, I've been starting to and like sort of reading a little bit more about styles and how different beers are made. And I'm starting to kind of realize like, oh, such and such, or like this style is just like sort of this style, but like with this kind of change made to it or something. And so I'm starting to realize that like triple IPAs and barley wines are actually very closely related. And you start to think like, oh, that doesn't make any sense at all. But maybe in the context of that, if I start trying barley wines, or even maybe trying barley wines next to some double or triple IPAs, maybe I'll start to realize like, oh, I do understand how these are related, and I see why people like this.
Yeah, no, that's totally that makes sense. Yeah, it's the why it is the way it is. Firestone Walker Eldorado. That's the one that I actually really like.
Okay.
So that's same as you. I don't have a lot of experience with barley wines, but that one is one that I will definitely drink if I get the opportunity to do. So I'd like to explore more barley wines, but yeah, that's a challenging style.
I mean, caramel, raisin, fig.
Yeah,
I don't know. That's like it's getting into some more complex, like sweet and sticky flavors that get a little weird
yeah,
sometimes
yeah, a little slippery,
with the
and then
alcohol.
generally the alcohol is really high. So and there might be, I honestly don't know enough about barley wine, but the couple that I've been exposed to, the ABV is quite high. So that can be a little bit of a barrier to just like jumping into them.
Yeah, and it's those complex flavors with also some like hot bitterness too. So it's definitely not an easy style to love or get into.
No, so we got to get there, Steven. That's our
Yeah,
goal, long-term
yeah.
goal, 5-year plan.
Reach craft beer nirvana when we understand
We
and
got to like
enjoy all
every style.
styles.
Yeah, nice.
And you know what's really funny is time and time again when I listen to like head brewers of these big breweries talk, they all like their pilsners and their lagers.
I know, isn't that funny?
I
It
don't
all
know.
goes
I don't
back to
understand
like
it. I really don't.
it's
Actually.
weird, yeah. Because like I don't know, maybe it's like what I said before, I think in a previous episode, it's like the cheese pizza of the beer
Yeah.
world. It's
Well,
like
and I
just
think
giving you
like
the simplest form.
right, and I think in like for them, their heads in the hops all the time, and it's just this constant like trying to parse out flavors of hops and figure out how to brew the next strong beer and all this stuff, you know. And I think at the end of the day, they just want to be like, I just want to drink something light and uncomplicated.
Maybe see that's beer nirvana. You go full circle.
Yeah, exactly. You appreciate and love every style, but you
But
drink.
then you just drink Pilsner.
Yeah. We know. Okay, we know the end goal.
Oh, jeez. That's hilarious. All right. That's our 5-year plan. To like every style, but then only drink Pilsners. Nice.
That's awesome.
Okay, so I think that wraps up our beer misconceptions. If you were enjoying the podcast, we'd love if you would subscribe and leave us a review on iTunes or whatever platform you listen to, because that really helps get us out there. And then what is our email? I should write this down.
Oh my gosh. Contact.attenuation@gmail.com.
And our Instagram is attenuation.podcast.
Podcast. Yeah.
So by the time you hear this, unfortunately, we'll already be back from our trip.
Yeah.
So check out our Instagram now that you're hearing this. There's probably cool pictures on it.
Yeah, definitely within the yeah, exactly. Well, by the time you hear this, there will have been plenty of shenanigans posted on Instagram.
Yeah. So I'm super looking forward to seeing you.
Yep.
I'm very excited. So our next episode, we'll be reporting back on our trip. So
Nice. Yeah,
so
I look forward to that.
Yeah, for sure, dude. So anyways, my name's Jason, and I'm joined by my best friend since 8th grade. That's Steven.
That's me.
And we are signing off. So cheers, and we will see you next time.
All right, cheers. Thanks for listening to this week's episode of Attenuation, a beer podcast. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast and follow us on Instagram and Facebook for more fun content. We'll catch you next week. Cheers.